Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. If you're just walking in, hopefully you've seen your event app and you know that things were adjusted and pushed back just a little bit to accommodate for all the engaging dialogue and information that we got, including how excited are you about the Google announcement? I think that's going to be a game changer, and it gives us a lot of access and some good things coming for our students. So thank you for joining us. This is the practical use of AI for college workflows. Again, if you're just joining us, the panels right now in the morning are from 11:30 to 12:30, and lunch will be from 12:30 to 1:30. So you'll still have time, and right now the afternoon schedule remains the same as it was in your event app. I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank our panelists. This is practical use of AI for college workflows. I'll introduce them briefly in a moment, but all our panelists' information is in your app, so you can read about their wonderful accomplishments and background. But I want to just take a moment to let you know who we have here on the stage before I get started. We have Dave Johnston, we have Jory Hadsell, Amanda Marshall, Joel Bennett, Jer Zhang, and Allison Merchik. And they will tell you where they're from. You'll see that when they show their slides in just a moment. But we're here today to continue the conversation that started in the morning of what is the potential for AI and how can it help us and how can it help our students. One of the things that we have been talking about around AI is how do we build capacity? Okay? A lot of our colleges and institutions, we have processes, we have workflows, we have problems with our workflows. How do we make sure we build capacity and work with AI to help us build that capacity? And our panelists today are going to talk about some use cases and showcase what they're doing at their colleges and institutions in order to tell us how they're building capacity and helping their institution with certain processes and workflows. What we hope to do today is highlight and showcase some of those use cases, and then after the panelists present you with their ideas, I'm going to ask them some questions, and time permitting, we'll let the audience ask some questions as well. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to hand it off first to Dave Johnston.
Good morning. Hopefully it's working. There we go. Okay, 50-50 on the remote.
Well, Dave, first of all, as we're 50-50 on the remote, you can go ahead. I know that when we talked, you said that your IT team was getting particularly overwhelmed, especially around the start of a semester, especially when there were a lot of common calls, questions that were inundating your staff. So based on that, what did you do to find a solution?
Thank you. If you could advance since this wasn't advanced. So yeah, like all of you, there's never enough IT people. And for Mendocino College, so we're about 2 hours north of San Francisco up in the Redwoods. We have, the 2 weeks before the semester starts, the 2 weeks after the semester starts, nobody remembers their passwords, so we're getting a million calls for password resets. I can't remember how to get on the Wi-Fi, even though it was just on there for the summer session or in the spring. And so we have this explosion of tickets. And so we have a small IT team, small but mighty, but we really need help. And then the other issue, I think, particularly post-pandemic, is this expectation of support outside of the normal 8 to 5 business day. Our students now are calling the help desk at 2 o'clock in the morning and hitting the answering machine. And so that's been a challenge for us. We've done some work with extended hours to try to stagger our staff so we can go into 6 or 7 at night, but obviously we can't be there when students are going to need to be there. And just the techs spend an inordinate amount of time at the beginning of the semester on these just tier 1 kind of tickets. So what we did is, there you go. So we worked with Invoke Learning, which is one of our partner we were already working with on a data lakehouse. And so they had a solution that is basically a tech support bot. The bot can handle phone calls and emails. It can also do wonderful video conferences, but I didn't want to pay for the video, so we do phone and email, which is how our students are used to contacting us. So the bot is integrated with our systems. It can do password resets for students, and if it has a knowledge base of other, just all the typical tier 1 kinds of tickets that we get. Additionally, if it can't help a student, it can open a ticket in our ticket system, And it can also, if it's during business hours, it can transfer them to the human help desk. So it's been a really nice addition for us. And I think the folks that normally handle those tier 1 phone calls, it's been a little quiet, a little bit eerie for them, I think, this semester. The other thing for us that's really been beneficial is we're a Hispanic serving institution. About 38% of our students are Hispanic. And we have one programmer analyst in my department that speaks Spanish. And so he was spending, we were having to transfer people to him. He doesn't really know how to answer those IT questions, but at least he speaks Spanish. And so it was a challenge. And so the nice thing about the bot is that it does speak Spanish. We actually had to iterate a while to find a Spanish voice that we really liked. I think one of the better ones that wasn't quite there was the Swedish person speaking Spanish. But anyway, we did finally get one we liked. And we're in the process now. We worked with our English ESL faculty on identifying some additional languages. So the current model does 17 languages, and so we're gonna bring in another 6 languages. But for us, the Spanish was a huge piece. And so I know there's probably questions about the nerdy bits. So the way it works is Invoke Learning basically spins up an instance of the bot. The bot connects to the existing data we already had in the Invoke system. So they created views specifically for the bot to get the pieces of information needed, like student ID, date of birth, phone numbers, emails, those sorts of things. It connects to Intra, so it can go ahead and do the password reset. Then we provided a knowledge base of information, PDFs, Word docs, those typical kinds of questions and answers, explaining the process for getting on the Wi-Fi, explaining, how to get into Canvas, how to get through our SSO, self-service enrollment. So all those kinds of things are in the knowledge base, so it can answer those questions as well. And as I mentioned, it connects to the ticket system, uses the API to get there, and if it needs to, it'll transfer a call during business hours. And so it's been a really nice system for us. We've only been using it about a month, so I'm hoping as we get into spring, we'll really see more of a benefit. We do get students that want to talk to a human, and that's okay, but there's a large number of them that do stick with the bot. And there's actually been we get to see all of the calls. I can see the text, I can also listen to recordings. But there's been a few of them, longer calls, where the student starts out frustrated, but by the end they're thanking the bot for helping them with their problem. And so it's nice to see those positive reactions. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. I think all of our institutions have small but mighty IT teams and could learn of how to, from this use, how to build some capacity. Jory, I know that the California community colleges have been in the news recently around fraudulent students, and I know that Foothill-De-Anza had to tackle this problem. So can you talk a little bit about the problem that our district, Foothill-De-Anza Community College District, faced, and how you started to solve that and used AI?
Sure, yeah. Good to see everyone here, and obviously I love workshops that are focused on really practical solutions, right, that solve problems. So I'll kick off a little bit of a story, and you might hear some different arcs to the story as we kind of go down the line here. But like many of our institutions at Foothill-De-Anza in January of 2024, we were hit particularly hard with fraud. It wasn't necessarily a surprise because we've been hearing from other institutions around the state. There's kind of the quiet whispers between CTOs and between other leadership folks, where we knew that this was a problem. And so timing-wise, we were seeing this surge of fraudulent applications coming in to our institutions, and we had just started on a different project. In fact, working on a beta project along with our friends here from West Valley Mission and Ivy Tech Community College as well. But when this problem popped up, I will never forget being in the meeting with our admissions and financial aids officers from our 2 colleges, just saying, like, Jory, we have to think differently about how to solve this solution. We're pulling our hair out. We're exhausting our staff. Oh, thank you for. Let me go back to the problem. See, don't let a technologist have a remote because interesting things happen. And so we talked with our partners at End-to-End. We'd worked with End-to-End before on the California Virtual Campus. So nearly all of our colleges in the state have an integration through End-to-End. Gosh, could we leverage that so that we could have a quick, get something in place, test it out quickly without having to do a lot of deep infrastructure work? And so we looked at the challenges, whether it was students can't get their courses, staff burning out, financial risk, and reputational risk, right, for our colleges. And so what we did was we partnered with Intuit. We brought in our subject matter experts from student services and from our IT staff. Shout out to a couple of our staff who are in the room here. I see Jarek and I see a few other folks who worked heavily on this project. And we said, okay, if we're going to use AI, what's the number one thing we can do to train the model? Let's use some historical data. So we fed it a couple of years worth of historical data to be able to understand what some of the patterns look like. We validated that with our staff because they were on the front lines and seeing on a daily basis what the changing tactics were that were coming in. And so as a result, we got to a place where we felt confident that we could run this behind the scenes for our fall registration last year. We ran it side by side with our in-house developed legacy fraud model, and we actually discovered double the amount of what we thought we had. So that's the power of AI, being able to look across these data sets and find these patterns. So through the collaboration, my friend Joel here said, you know what, we'll take that, right? And we'll test it. And so we began this multi-district collaboration, and then we had Santiago Canyon come on board and some other districts as well, because there was this sort of quiet network of all of us trying to share solutions. So I think the story is, working with existing partners, if they have capabilities you can quickly leverage, being able to, move quickly in a way that's thoughtful and careful, but with other partnerships. We benefited so much from knowing that your district was seeing the same types of results that we were seeing, and that others that came on afterward. Like, it just continues to validate and improve the model. And so today we have, I believe, 83 colleges now in our system that are using this solution, the Light Leap solution. It's just like sometimes you find something that works and you go with it. And so we've been really excited about that. And so again, the cross-district piece is critically important, and I just wanted to share that as part of our journey.
Thank you. Amanda and Joel, I know that West Valley Mission Community College District had this project that they were also working on, but I know that you also saw some other needs where you could use AI as a solution. So let me ask you, what made you want to explore using AI with your student services areas and to support them?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So I'm Amanda Marshall. I am the Assistant Director of our EOPS and CARE programs at Mission College right down the street. And a couple years ago, when I came into my position, I was kind of taking a landscape of the student journey in terms of gaining access to our programs and services. And so we have about 10 what we call success communities, so EOPS, TRIO, MESA, our APITA affinity groups, Emoja, Puente, and then we also have our basic needs services, our career center, mental health services. And so students were submitting different applications for each program and service, or interest forms and then applications, right? And then we were taking a very siloed approach to determining eligibility and communicating with students and accepting them into programs. So this was, creating duplication of services where we're serving a lot of the same students. We're not broadening our reach. We don't really know who's eligible for our programs. We're asking the students to jump through a lot of hoops just to get to the point of connection, right? And so I actually created a centralized form for all of our programs and services. So we call it the mission support form. And we use kind of the lowest common denominator of what everybody needs in terms of eligibility criteria. And part of the difficulty then in having students fill out that form is okay, there's also back-end data that we need, and some of it is in CC Apply, and some of it is in this other system, and some of it's over here. And so we're tracking down and accessing different systems to try to find eligibility information. And then we're still all working in silos, right? So we tried to combine it into this giant spreadsheet where then people are deleting things and moving things, and things are getting lost, and people are super overwhelmed. It's hard to keep track. We had duplicate submissions. We had, people putting the wrong information, the incorrect ID number. So we spent so much time just trying to clean up data and find accurate data to figure out whether or not students were eligible for programs. And then it took us so much longer to get back to them And when we did communicate, it was a lot of back and forth of like, we still need pieces from you, or we need you to clarify this. So it was taking very long to get students connected. And we were literally looking at this like, there has to be a better way, right? So the solution was to integrate AI.
Great. I'm Joel Bennett, Director of Educational Technology at West Valley Mission. So, typical problem, right? We have college administrators and staff struggling with our platforms like Banner and others, right? So, developing shadow IT processes because the existing platforms don't work. So what we wanted to do was create a single pane of glass for these staff, right? Just the cognitive load of having to go to Argos and Banner and gather all this information. Before they even talk to a student, they're exhausted from just having to gather the data. So the first piece was working with End2End to develop a dashboard with all the data they need. Then the second part was, okay, all these programs have key eligibility to see if they're qualified or not. And so we trained AI to assess student data and determine whether they're eligible. So for TRIO, they have to be a first-gen college student, right? They have to be a STEM major. We train the model on each one of these programs, so now it can go through the student data and determine and make an assessment. Is this student qualified or not qualified? And then let the advisors know, and they can do the human assessment, right? Verify. And we flag those parts of any student's data that shows that they're not qualified or not met, right? So great success there. It goes through all kinds of student data, GPA, majors, financial aid status, because each one of these programs has unique eligibility status or requirements. So again, advisors see clear AI-generated breakdown of eligibility. What's the impact, right? Now Amanda and others can focus on student outreach and communication and providing the service, not fiddling around and being overwhelmed by data. And so just based on Amanda's assessment, this is saving her 5 hours a week. There's 13 different advisors working on Mission Cares. So once all 13 advisors are using it, we're looking at saving 3,000 staff hours a year. So there you go. Oh, sorry. I did the jury. Okay, so yeah, this one, really we kind of phrase this as, what's the problem, what's the solution? I also have what's next, right? Deeper integration. So we're working with specific programs that kind of didn't hit as well on the first phase. So we're looking to pull in more data from Banner to help some of the other programs. We're working on making AI chat, right? You can only fit so much data into a dashboard. We want these advisors to be able to say, tell me about Keith Smith. Show me all the students that I have reached out to that haven't responded. So that's what we're aiming to next. And then doing more early alert stuff, reaching out proactively to students, like you've registered, hey, you may be available to UPS based on the data we have on you. So there you go.
All right, thank you. I think you guys can all sense a theme here. Is this resonating with what's going on at your institutions? There's data validation, redundancies, duplication. We're all facing these challenges. And so I'll turn it over to Ujer right now. What's happening at Palo Alto, and what problem did your institution face, and how are you going to use AI to solve that?
Thank you. Hi, good morning. My name is Jer Zong. I'm the Dean of Student Services. I oversee financial aid, admissions records, and counseling. A bit of background about us. Can you go back a little bit? We are like the rural college. We are located in Blythe, California, right between the border of California and Arizona. We're just on the California side. And we have about 2,500 FTEs. And that equates to about 26,000 enrollments. Half of our student population are incarcerated rising scholars. We serve 6 CDCR locations in the state of California, 3 in SoCal, and then of course 3 in the Northern California. And of course, about 35 to 40% of our students are also science students. So, meaning, especially for our rising scholars students, they don't have internet access, right? We are paper-based. Everything is manual. We mail them our paper applications. They mail it back to us. If there's errors or we can't read it, we mail it back to them to correct it. By the time it gets back to us, classes are no longer available for them to register. It's a heavy manual process. And so when I came in, along with my Vice President, Clint Cowden, we had a half-day session with A&R, and we found out that the biggest struggle and challenge that we had with admissions records is this manual process of entering everything paper-based into colleague, line by line, and that just took up a whole lot of time. On average, we have about 500 applications annually. For peak seasons, we have about 800. And key issues that we have, bad handwriting, right? If a student puts down, I'm in yard A, we can see that and say maybe that says yard F, or sometimes instead of putting the yard location, they put prison or CDCR, whatever it is, right? There's also human errors in entering in this data. It's extremely time consuming and also essentially just not an efficient workflow, right? There's also implications of data integrity, and that really impacts our IR office as well. So one of the things that we did, and luckily we actually met Intuit at a different conference sometime last year or about last year. And in talking about these sorts of challenges, we thought, let's look at Intuit. Essentially, what Intuit has done for us is better streamline our process, right? So when we get these tax applications that come in on a weekly basis, we scan it up to our Intuit platform. From there, they then extract these handwritten data into our SAS system directly. When they're able to do that, when staff opens it up, we can compare the scanned documents with what's populated, and there's actually an accuracy meter. So say, for example, if the name is like 90% accurate, you know, generally 90% accurate, in my mind, it's pretty accurate. If it's like 85 or 80 or below, we double check those, right? And staff essentially goes in, just compares it, checks it, and finally like approve the information. We went live about like 3 to 4 weeks ago, and thus far it's been the most exciting thing for our staff because again, it really has cut down the manual process of these applications that come in. And so we're doing it for our rising scholars population and also for our fire science population. And I must say, for our fire science population, you would think, well, they are firefighters. You know, they have open access to the internet, they can do this easy to apply. However, the preference is paper, right? And we have to be good stewards and we have to provide excellent customer service because we're talking about at least 1,000 FTEs. If we lose fire science, that's impacting jobs, right? And so they have been very vocal about, you know what, our firefighters are good with paper applications, they're better with that. And so we have continued to use paper applications for them. But again, I think our end, finding Intuit as a solution to process this has been night and day for us, and so we're just really thrilled to really showcase that here.
Thank you, Jer. I think this is a great example again of how are we utilizing AI to still meet students where they are, because if they don't have the resources, they're gone, and we still want to impact them. And so meeting them where they are, but still finding solutions for our employees is really important. And I think, Allison, I believe you also at Santiago Canyon had some issues with manual entry and delays, and so I'll hand it to you. I'll be the remote right now.
I just want to say to my fellow panelists in the audience, this is my clicker that I offered to share, and obviously that was a bad idea. So sorry. Thought I was being helpful, but it's okay. We can just keep with our normal process. Hello everyone, my name is Allison Mersich. I'm the counselor coordinator apprenticeship at Santiago Canyon College. So when I came into my role, my position is very new, so I came into my position last year. And one of the things that I noticed as I was kind of taking a lay of the land, as we kind of talked about earlier, is where were some of the gaps in terms of how people are evaluated in terms of our numbers and how we're serving our students. So one of the biggest gaps that I found was that our apprenticeship students, which encompasses a big part of our population as a campus. We're a big apprenticeship program at Santiago Canyon College, for those of you that don't know. And our students' numbers, when we look at our graduation rates, weren't reflecting what our students were actually doing at their training centers and journeying out, right? So I was like, well, why isn't this happening? Why don't we see these reflections of that? And one of the things that we found was that the manual process, right, of going into evaluating the graduation and the completion of the students was very time consuming. Because of the nature of traditional trades, the training is typically done at offsite, right? It's not done in our college, it's done through the training centers of the different locations, carpentry, electrician, for example. And one of the things that happens is that information is sent through a very old school process of how the training trusts like to send their information over to us, and then we have to manually input that information. And then from there, at the end, students end up with 2 transcripts, one from the training trust and then one from our college, where our transcript at the end wasn't always reflective of what they actually did in their training. So we had to find a solution. And so one of the things that we found was that my counselor and my colleagues were spending hours to sometimes weeks processing one student. So when we have thousands, right now we have a population of a little over 5,000 current apprentices at our campus, those students are graduating all of the time, and our numbers were not reflecting that. So luckily we were able to connect and collaborate with End-to-End and talk about this particular issue and what we can do to help kind of bring forward their platform and their model to help us kind of break through these barriers, these like manual processing bottlenecks, very similar things to what my colleagues have shared, and so that our students can get the certificates that they deserve, right? They are eligible for a certificate of achievement, and they also have the ability to get an associate's degree in their apprenticeship programs if they have general education, and the students were just not getting the right access even though they had completed the programs. So we were able to first kind of see, well, what can we do? How can we kind of break down this process? Well, in our collaboration, our proposed solution, I'll say that out of, I think everyone here, we have not yet gone live. So we are still kind of in the planning stages, but we're very close to being able to kind of test this out. But we're really excited about what we see so far in terms of what we will be able to do with this integration. And I think this has a lot of amazing implications for many of your colleges if we think about just transcript evaluation as a whole, right? All of us get other college transcripts, whether you have apprenticeship programs or not, that you have to figure out how they fit into your programs. So this has amazing implications for everyone. But for us, one of the great things that the model and the platform is able to bring to us is that it brings everything to one place. So one of the things that is difficult is that we again have these outside transcripts, we have missing information, and so it's able to kind of bring it all forward. Bring it all forward into one place so we can see all of the information together. One of the other great things that this has helped us do is kind of look at our internal processes. Is how can we better support our students and how can we break down some of the barriers of how we're processing paperwork just for graduation. So I would say on a side note, that's been an amazing thing to be able to connect with all of the different departments on our campus that connect students to completing their program. And we've been able to collaborate and take out, I would say, take out multiple forms where now it's just one single form. And so now we're able to use that one single form that now combines multiple forms that we had to do in the past within this integration so that all of the information is on one page. And that took our campus to really be on board with how can we better support our internal process so that this could work. And so it goes both ways. And so yes, the technology helps, but we also have to be open to how do we envision this change and what do we need to do as a campus to kind of think about what we can do just within our daily work. And so with that, the other piece that we were able to really think about too is integrating CPL, credit for prior learning. So one of the things that we built into this process as well is for our apprenticeship students, one of the things that happens is that the Trading Trust does CPL, and they've been doing CPL for a long time, way longer than we've even been thinking about it. When a student goes into a carpentry training trust to be indentured, they're evaluated on their previous work experience, and they can skip levels, right, and then indenture out. We didn't have a process in place for those gaps when the students didn't have that coursework when they indentured higher. So now within this system and now within this integration with end-to-end, we're able to build into, within that, again, singleized form, CPL into this process. So it's really exciting. We're able to kind of, again, bring in a lot of internal processes plus build this through. So we're excited. The other piece that's really cool about this that was probably the best thing that Karen showed us at end-to-end recently, his team was able to show us that our internal form that we created to graduate students that minimized, the system is actually able to automate all of the fields and information within that PDF so that everything is be able to be verified and checked, but it can be sent over directly to our admissions and records team once our counselors have reviewed it. So taking down a lot of not only processing steps, but people that have to kind of stop and check each of these different levels. So we're really excited. Stay tuned as we have the opportunity to kind of see what the outcomes will be and what we're able to build this from moving forward. But I think a lot of great implications for everyone in the room.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. I hope this is starting to give you ideas of where some of your pain points and processes might benefit from some AI solutions. But I want to throw this question out because some of you touched on it a little bit. We all know at our institutions that change is hard. It's hard to get people to do things differently. Are you from an institution where it's easy? Oh, I was hoping we'd have some examples. So change is hard. So I'm just going to throw it out to the panelists. Knowing that change is hard, and even though you're doing something or trying to deploy a solution or develop a solution that will help build capacity and improve workflows, what challenges or roadblocks did you face, and how did you overcome that to help move people along?
So I think one of the key challenges is this technology is new, and some key stakeholders within our organization have been used to building or buying stuff that's basically shelfware, right? But this solution was custom built, with a trusted partner, but it took some time to develop, and so that was a key thing to overcome. We had a few false starts, but then we got some buy-in from the president of Mission College, and that helped kind of push it forward for us. So.
Well, I'll go next. I think that one of the components that in this project and in others is we have a lot of really dedicated professional staff at our colleges who, I kind of think about it like the middle layer of our institutions where a lot of these processes are handled. They've evolved over time, and our professional staff have a lot of pride in the work that they're doing and their ability to support some of these processes that, frankly, they probably don't even like, but they're able to hold up the layers of the cake. And so I think one of the components of that was being able to present them with a solution or a proposed solution that would functionally ease their workload, right? Being able to give them something very practical that had a real impact on how they do their job, and to let them focus on other areas of their job they'd rather do, right? Whether it's interacting with students or whether it's providing other services. So I think that was a real key takeaway for me was, we can go to AI conferences, we can talk about academic integrity issues, we can talk about, the big, sort of, front of the line kind of items. But from a really practical standpoint, I think just finding tweaks and things that can help people do their job more effectively and allow them, I'm super impressed by your solution, right? To be able to say, hey, this is also helping our students get their credential faster, right? So everyone wins.
Yeah, I was just going to say the other piece that when we talk about roadblocks is that oftentimes, and I think I've noticed this with some of my colleagues as well, is that sometimes it's within our institution, but then also outside of our institution, right? Like we're taking in, for example, for apprenticeship, right? There's a lot of different programs and people, and they have their own processes and how they run things and ways that they want to potentially modernize or not. So how can we adjust to that while still serving our students? And I think all of us have kind of shown how we can kind of find, okay, well, this has been a problem for a long time. This is something that we can do about it. Where before these tools came about, we really didn't have a lot of options. We just kind of had to make use with what we had.
I think one of the challenges that we're facing is, and I'm going to blame it on the old web chat bot we had. It wasn't very good. So I think it got a reputation of not being helpful. We've actually replaced that now, so we have a different web chat now, which is now helpful. But I think people calling into the AI tech support bot, I think they're jumping to human faster, and I think it's probably because of experiences with the web chat bot, not realizing it's different technology. So I think part of our challenge is going to be to overcome that, immediate go to human, and to have it get a reputation across campus that it's helpful and useful, and I think over time we'll accomplish that.
As everybody's here at this conference, you're going to be exposed to a lot of different solutions and products. If you've checked out the Futures Hub downstairs, you'll see we have a lot of vendors, and so there are a lot of options out there for how to solve the pain points that institutions are feeling and having. Sometimes it becomes then a patchwork of having different solutions. So I want to either throw this out to all of you, or maybe the CTOs, I don't know, whoever wants to answer, but how does your particular project right now, how does it or how will it fit into a broader AI strategy, and has your institution addressed that, or is it addressing that?
Many of our faculty is ignoring AI and hoping it will go away.
It's a strategy still. May not be a great one, but
still working on that. But I think we have done a lot of work on getting students to help when they need the help in the way that they need the help. And so I think for us, this spot was kind of the natural progression of the efforts we've made in expanding hours and doing drop-in support and some of the other things that we've done. So it's been kind of that natural progression. And actually, since we've done this, our VP of Student Services has actually come to me and said, what would it take to do this same thing in admissions and records and in financial aid? And so we're starting to have those conversations to see how we can expand the scope of the bot to more departments.
Tackle that?
I'll bite.
Okay, thank you.
No, I'm watching what Dave's doing at Mendocino, and I'm like, why didn't we think of that, right? So there is a lot of this sharing that happens, and I'm super privileged to be able to learn from smart people like him. I think that from my perspective, even if you don't know exactly where you're going to start, your institution can start putting some of the fundamental pieces in place, right? So we started about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, just knowing that we had too many data silos. And we were going to want to use AI, but where's that going to happen? Where are we going to have the sort of the coalition of the willing that want to jump in? And so being able to make sure that when you do take a leap with a product, that you have access to the data easily, right? So we started consolidating our data into an infrastructure where it can, we can easily API into that. We can be able to have that interoperability between products. So I think that's really important. Because there are multiple players, right, in your institution that are going to have different visions of what they want to have happen. But I love the example of, hey, I don't want to call out anyone in my own district, but we have phone trees still, right, in certain areas, and it's like, oh, I'd love to get rid of those phone trees. No one thinks that's a great experience, right, for students. So I'm going to totally steal your idea.
All right, I'll throw another question. So Allison, Jer, Amanda, you've talked about how you're directly serving students and meeting them where they are. At this point with your solution, what lessons have you learned and what are next steps for you? Because some of you have really changed the way that you're operating? What are some lessons and next steps?
Yeah, I think that one of our next steps is to really do some analytical data on how much this has improved our process, because we've seen some very tangible results even in the first semester of rolling it out. Just shortening up the time that students are hearing back from us, they're able to get connected so much faster to services. We've also been able to reduce by about 10% the amount of students who are enrolling in the college and then never registering for classes or applying for financial aid, because we're identifying them early when they apply to the form, and we're reaching out to them. We have a dedicated liaison in financial aid that I work with, where we're talking every day, looking at the student's eligibility because they've reached out, right? And so we're closing all of those loops at the same time and really working in a connected way to make sure that those students get connected to those services. So we're seeing improvements there. And we're also, intentionally making connections to our new student equity plan at the college as well, and seeing how it's helping to advance, specific disproportionate impact gap closing that we're looking to do as well. So I think those are some next steps that we're looking at, because it's just improved our process so much across the board. So I think something that has been super helpful for me in general, in saving time, is the communication templates that we have automatically populated. I spend so much time on email going back and forth with students, and in our system we actually just have a notify button where I just pick a pre-populated template and I send it out to the student, and then there's a reply to field that automatically comes back to my email if they want to reach out. And it's just honestly revolutionized the way that we connect with students. It's something so simple, but I can't wait to roll that out to other departments so that it's freeing up time for them to actually help resolve the student's issue, instead of drafting continuous emails to various students and not really having a place where they can track who they've reached out to for what. So this has been absolute game changer for us.
I think for us, we are doing baby steps for sure. Like I said, we went live about a few weeks ago, and we've been meeting with the end-to-end team almost on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis to kind of get feedback, right, on how do we, say for example, if we scan a zip code, that should automatically populate a city as well. Things like that. So essentially just refining the process. We understand that it won't be perfect yet, right? And so I think sometimes on our campus, there's this fear of how do we jump onto a software or a product if it's not perfect yet, right? But I think that it kind of hinders a lot of the progress that we've been through. And so I think for us, it's really trying to change that culture and change that mindset of saying, hey, you know what, let's go ahead and adopt this. And it's a pilot semester for us, and so that's exciting. On a more different note, next steps also for my VP and higher up. It's also a question for our CSCA union as well. We are a union-heavy campus, right? And although I don't sit in these meetings, I do not doubt that these conversations are coming up about fears of is this going to replace our jobs essentially, right? And so, again, fortunately, I'm not in those meetings, but I think for me, at least on a daily basis, when I meet with my staff members who are in these unions, it's benefiting them. It's benefiting the way in which they do their work, and it's a lot more efficient for them. So we are certainly taking baby steps and approaching it very carefully as well. So.
Yeah, so I think similarly, we have not yet gone live, so I think for us, we're excited to initiate that process and kind of see. I have a specific test group that we're working with, so I spoke earlier about changing our internal processes and building a lot of things like CPL and other things into it. So myself and my colleague this summer, we had 600 plus students that we needed to evaluate for just one of our programs, which was carpentry. This one tends to be the most complicated because they have the most courses to evaluate. And we were, over the course of the 2 months in the summer, we were only able to get through half when we were doing it manually. So we did over 300. So we have the next 300 that we still need to evaluate. And so we're connecting, and that's going to be our first group that we're going to go live with so that we can see how quickly, in terms of testing it, directly, same group of students, us doing it manually as the counselors, and then utilizing end-to-end, how can we kind of see the benefit of time and integration in all these different areas. So we're really excited for that. And then I think just, similarly overcoming the fear of it not being 100% accurate. When we're talking about transcript evaluation, there's so much detail that it needs to be accurate, right? Like so many of these other areas. And so how do we overcome the fact that we know it's never going to be 100%? So, but building into our process of verification and accuracy, everything that we've been talking about with AI, and just understanding that the benefits of all of these other areas, building that into it, and just kind of overall building that with the campus culture.
Thank you. We do have time before I throw you the last question that I have for you. If anybody in the audience has a question, we have time for a question or two. Does anyone want to ask anything? Yes, go ahead.
Hi. When you were talking about fear, there was a really interesting saying in a webinar recently that said AI probably won't take your position, but someone who knows AI probably will. That always resonates with me. I thought that was interesting. But my question is more about counseling, and I was wondering, has anyone integrated degree works and analyzing patterns on how students take courses to finish? Recently, I had quite a few English students coming in for a full literature class that said, "Hey, I need this for my graduation this semester," and I said, "Okay, let's look at what you've taken and everything." And I realized that half of them really didn't need that to graduate. They thought they did, but they didn't understand their degree pattern, and that there were 6 courses that they could take, and they just needed 2 for the elective. But one of them resonated with me because they had waited until the very last semester before they graduated and just didn't realize the historical pattern of how often these are rotated. They're not offered every semester, and it's a 2-year plan. But if you miss, each semester, then you're not going to graduate in 2 years. So I'm wondering, is there some sort of effort to create some sort of agent or bot where the student could analyze what classes they're taking and maybe even retain a counselor if some of these are
Before you answer that, let me just summarize a question for those in the back.
That's
It's fine. I hope I summarize it accurately. The question is around solutions that might integrate either degree works or degree requirements so that students who might miss requirements and have to then catch up quickly, if there's a solution to address that. Is that close enough? Okay.
I can take that if you would like. Hello everyone, it's Kiran Kuritala, founder and CEO. Hello everyone, my name is Kiran Kuritala, founder and CEO of End-to-End, Likely BI platform. So a couple of things to answer your question. Yes, as part of the apprenticeship tracking, it does have what's in unofficial degree audit. It does not use degree works, and I'll kind of back into that in a minute. But we can use degree audit, degree works APIs if that's what you want. The other part, where's Gary? Oh, there's Gary. So we're working on other very exciting stuff with current community college district on guided pathways integration that would solve exactly what you're talking about, where we have built how many of you use Waze for maps, right? So the idea about Waze that when compared to Google Maps is Google Maps had to go and build a very complex billions of dollars architecture to pull all the data and build out the maps. But with Waze, you're just following other people that are trying to go from destination to A to B. So guided pathways is almost exactly like that, where it looks at what other students are doing, very similar to you, but also what they were doing in that trajectory with respect to time dimension. So this is why we are trying to shy away from DegreeWorks or other traditional degree audit systems. We're trying to build a historical database modeling system. Definitely look me up at our booth or talk to Gary, because he's kind of my co-conspirator / co-inventor here. He can explain this better than me, but yeah, let's definitely talk, yeah.
That booth is in the Futures Hub at N10 downstairs. So. All right, any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
I just had a question regarding funding, because I know that's a topic of conversation. What type of planning processes are you embedding to ensure that some of these practices are sustainable? Because I know that that's some of the challenges that we're facing is, we get really excited with all this information and technology, but we look into the futures, and that might be 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years. Have you started thinking about that, or what are your planning processes for that?
So the question is around funding and planning processes to build in sustainability with these solutions.
I think
Stunned silence.
we're the practical users, right? And so we're the ones that helped kind of build it. I think those tend to be higher up decisions. I know it was for me. My president was very excited, and I was like, yes, thank you. So I think that's probably.
So just to kick us off, we use COVID funding to do the pilot, and so right now we get fraud for $3,000 per campus, paid by most of the costs covered by the state chancellor's office. So that's great, but it's just a proven solution, right? We're going to potentially save 3,000 hours, and then it just becomes a priority for the president of, this is a valued service you provide, and we're doing it faster, better, and less work for your staff. So it becomes a priority.
Yeah, I would totally echo that, and I think as a CTO, I try to you plan for things that aren't planned, right? So do you have some kind of innovation fund or some COVID money or some pocket you can pull some resources out of to run these proofs of concept, which often you can kind of negotiate that too if it's something new that you're doing. And then in terms of sustainability, though, you bring up a really good point, which is the life cycle for so many technology solutions is now so much shorter than it used to be. So it's not, hey, we're going to adopt something, a new degree audit system, and we're going to use it for 5 to 7 or 10 years. That whole life cycle is just so much shorter because of the evolution of AI and technology. So that's part of the digital transformation effort is helping the team, both your IT team, but also your functional users, to recognize, we have to approach this differently. We have to be a little bit more open to solutions that, maybe we haven't used before, or, kind of not hold on like we have to so many of the technology solutions in the sector.
All right, so the last question is for all of you, or whoever wants to answer. Are you volunteering Dave first? Okay. So I guess for Dave to start. Okay. We have a lot of institutional leaders here in the room. Okay? Everybody probably has a pain point. Everybody has a lens with which they view their institution and can see that, yes, we need these solutions. Somebody raised funding could be an issue. How do you even do all of these things and move change? So I'll ask you this. What advice do you have for all of these institutional leaders who are facing similar problems or can see some of these themes coming up at their institution? What advice do you have so that they can try to build some capacity in their institution?
Yeah, I think, starting with a pilot project, starting with a proof of concept, starting with something small that you can do that, because we all have a million pain points, but maybe there's one that you can find that you can focus on, and if it's a relatively low lift, but you can show some success, and that success, I think, helps not only your internal team feel good about what you're doing, but also helps then to open the eyes of the functional users. Oh, gee, they did that, and that was kind of easy, and it works very well now. I have this other thing, can you help me with that, I think. And as IT working collaboratively with the functional teams, to try to kind of help find those solutions for those things, and like I said, starting small and kind of working out from the center.
Just going down the line.
Oh, okay, go down the line.
All right, we'll do it that way. No, I agree with that. I think finding, again, some really practical, doesn't have to be a huge lift, but a way you can, make some of your employees' life just a little easier. And then it's amazing how folks will start to come out of the woodwork. Hey, I have this idea. Could we do this with AI? And I find that those, pay attention to those conversations, right? Because that's where the real nuggets come from, as folks start thinking about that and coming forward with those
Yeah, I would add to that, it's a very intentional change management process, right, when you're working with staff. And so I think the thing that was most effective for me was meeting with each stakeholder individually and giving them that time and attention, being really curious about their existing process and showing respect for that process, right? Because you're asking them to let go of it. So I think, showing respect for that process and really using that individual one-on-one space to get their buy-in and really sell them on the vision for what's coming. Because I think it can be hard to go into a meeting with a bunch of people and share this vision, and some people are like, I don't get it. I don't see it, I don't understand, but what if I'm doing this now, and how's that gonna work, and they didn't think of this. So starting with those individual conversations and really getting everyone on board and showing them kind of what our vision was and how, expressing our commitment to being very collaborative and iterative with that process and making sure that their needs are gonna get met, we're not gonna leave anything, behind, I think really helped us have a lot of buy-in, support, and enthusiasm from all of the kind of stakeholders that we were working with.
Yeah, and then from my experience, I think choosing partners within the college or district that will show up to the project, that are engaged in their own work and like to problem solve. And then the other piece is, I'd say, utilize the people on this panel. Like it comes in terms of selling an idea to folks on your campus. If it comes from other leaders on campuses, it may get buy-in better than, say, coming from a vendor.
I think for us, it's working in small groups. I think smaller groups can get a lot more work done. And it sounds cliche, but I think sometimes the hardest step is really just that first step. And now that we've gone live, again, I think that kind of easing some of the fears that we had with our staff, right? I think I always encourage my staff, are we making decisions out of fear, or are we making decisions of the unknown? And is the unknown fair? And why is that? And so I think, again, having daily check-ins with the staff and also with our partners, I think having really good communication with our partners is something that's really been really reassuring for us. I'm not a tech or AI person at all, and having them kind of explain things to me in layman terms, that's been really, really helpful for me and my staff. So.
I'll keep mine brief. I know you all are getting antsy for lunch. My stomach's grumbling too. So I'll say, as a counselor, for me, going back to the why of, is this going to support students and their experience in a positive way? If that answer is yes, then that's what you need, right? That's the motivation, and we all know that, right? We're here to serve our students, and if there's something within our institutions that makes things more difficult for them to be successful or to be able to get what it is that they earned and deserve, in my case, how can we take away some of those hurdles, right? And everything that we've talked about in all of our different programs are all different, but they're all about breaking down barriers. And so if that serves the student experience in a positive way, you have all of that is always going to serve you in completing your goals.
Well, I want to thank all of the panelists. Thank you so much for sharing about what you're doing at your institution. To our leaders and our audience here, I hope that this has sparked some ideas for you and you have some takeaways of maybe where you're going to engage in some dialogue at your institutions. And we have some resources up here if you need some help. Sorry for volunteering you. But thank you again, and lunch is downstairs in the Futures Hub, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Anybody there? Oh, heck yeah. My room is done.